TSUKIMICHI Moonlit Fantasy has been a show I've been keeping my eye on for a couple of months now. I didn't see too much buzz around this one going into the season, but if you watch the PV, it gave me a very funny vibe. And the two types of isekais that I really enjoy are the very goofy ones, the ones that try to make you laugh, and those that really twist it and do something dark with it. If it's just that run-of-the-mill hero fantasy, I don't pay attention to them. They're just not interesting to me at this point in time. But Moonlit Fantasy did exactly what I wanted to see. Amazing voice actor, selling you on the role of Makoto, someone who has been dealt both a great and horrible hand. You have that outlandish, cartoonish art style and animation that is always reacting in a different way. A bunch of really interesting characters, from a pig-like orc waifu, I guess. That probably will happen if we take this episode into account. A dragon who falls in love, who turns into a hot anime character, wants to be called a samurai, as you also get made fun of because apparently this is what's considered ugly in the world of Tsukimichi, and seriously, this show was a riot. There's definitely a lot of shows that kind of use this style, and I'm not going to say it's the first one to do it, but I do have to say there's quite a few little bells and whistles that I haven't seen done before, or at least not back-to-back in the way that this show did it. Usually, when you get a character who gets isekai'd, hit by the car, teleported randomly, and I mean, he literally self-narrates that exactly. I thought we were actually getting a recap for Season 2 in the first minute of this episode. But the fact that when he's whisked away by a god, his first thought is, yeah, I ain't gonna believe you're a god, but then the god says, hey, you need to sign a contract if you want to be isekai'd. Honestly, haven't seen that done before, and I thought it was really interesting, and I love the comedy banter between these two, from going from contracts to saying, hey, don't worry, when you're gone, I will take away all the naughty things that you had in your life so no one will think less of you, and he's basically worshipping him for that reason alone. But I think one of the biggest selling points, minus the funny interactions of making the isekai intro a little different and fresh, is the fact that he actually leaves a note for his siblings and his family so they don't wonder where he goes, which often with isekai series, either A, you just never hear about their family, or the characters just don't care. So the fact that he's getting isekai'd in order so that his siblings won't get isekai'd themselves, basically, as they have this pretty interesting premise of people going either to Japan or going to this fantasy world, it kind of goes both ways with the contracts. If you're telling us that this character is going to literally change his life completely to protect his family, you best leave some message, and I'm glad they went that way. It actually had a hilariously fresh take on the intro, but the intro's just a small factor of what's usually a 12-episode anime. You know, usually don't get more than that. But for an ongoing light novel, what's kind of like the way to keep you going that's going to be fresh? And it's honestly the non-stop banter of Makoto, the main character, who I have to say, they picked the perfect voice actor for this role. If you would have had a more dry or mundane performance, this first episode would have been pretty boring. Non-stop, this guy has charisma, he's an interesting character to listen to, and at every step of the way when characters push his buttons or something ridiculous happens, there's never a dull moment. When he's getting shunned and ridiculed by the goddess of this world, this goddess makes Aqua from Konosuba look like a saint, just ridiculing, saying, I ain't even gonna help you, I'm gonna throw you to the farthest corner of the world, I'll let you read and write in the language of these people, but don't you dare try to mate with them. This boy got dealt the worst hand ever, and I thought it was just gonna stay like that. But even when he's getting ridiculed, he's a performer who you naturally want to listen to, and even if the goddess is a horrible bitch, this guy you immediately want to root for as he's having the worst possible luck. I mean, of course you had like the typical formulas that we always see. He's ridiculously powerful. Despite being level 1, this man can cast fire magic and almost completely destroy an immortal dragon. Everything about him is ridiculously powerful, but I like the idea of where he's starting out literally at the corner of the world where no one would normally go, and is changing the landscapes almost immediately, like someone like Rimuru from That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. The fact that this dragon, who normally should not even be wounded by fire magic, he's so powerful given all the blessings and stuff that he pretty much kills it. Or at least is starting to, and when the dragon starts like looking into his memories, it becomes so infatuated, like the fact that it's like literally in love. I'm like, if this dragon doesn't become a love interest, that's going to be the biggest missed opportunity. I just wasn't expecting the dragon to get a human form when the contract was made, and the fact that they even like laid out interesting ideas, like the way the contracts are usually made, you have to balance it. They were initially going for a 50-50 split, but because he's so powerful, they actually had to go an 80-20 split. There's just so many things about this that on a story kind of world level, interesting enough, it serves the purpose with having some interesting mechanics for sure, almost like a video game like system, leveling and things like that. They have fun with that with its art style. I especially love when he goes in to save this pig, and, you know, she's obviously freaked the hell out. Emma, I believe is her name, and he's seeing it from her perspective, or she's just basically looking at it from her own perspective. And it's almost like a video game menu of basically reluctantly accepting. And just the fact that, like, the first creature he fights in this world, he pretty much one-shots and makes himself look like the demon. There's just so much charm and style to this show that I guess this is a decently popular source material from what I know. I just don't think the West knows about it all that much, because usually a show like this I thought would have like a pretty average production. But from what I'm seeing, like, this is matching some of my favorite comedy isekai anime, like even stuff like the Konosuba series, where I really feel like the production is sharp, great character design, solid background art from what we've seen, and just the over-exaggerated body reactions. It is a really fun time, with probably my current favorite opening of the season. That opening had no right to go as hard as it did, but that opening will never be skipped, and while the ending visuals aren't anything to write home about, the song itself is a nice peaceful way to wrap up the episode. I mean, I used to be one of those people who said like, oh, I'm sick of isekais, like there's far too many of them, right? But I don't know, like the past year and a half, I feel like there's a lot more comedy and like really serious takes on isekais, rather than just the generic hero fantasy. So I'm pretty much here for it. I mean, I don't care if it reminds me of other isekais I've recently watched, as long as you got great voice actors. If you have a great production, that's already a big selling point for sure. But it's really the voice actors and the initial hook, and as long as you can really suck me in with those two, I'm probably going to stick by it for sure. I may not always talk about it on the channel, but stuff like TSUKIMICHI, it's hard not to. Even if it's not like something you really have to like stretch your brain to comprehend the story, it's one of those things that you have such fun, it's hard not to share that passion with other people. And given the setup we've seen, I honestly think they could also tell a pretty fun story all at the same time. TSUKIMICHI has a really good foundation to work for, and I really hope they continue building the momentum, because I see a lot of potential with this one. I really think TSUKIMICHI Moonlit Fantasy is going to be an underdog of the season. I definitely think because it's an isekai, it won't get slept on. Everyone watches isekai, even the people who say they hate isekais, right? But I do think this will be a show that probably a couple weeks from now is really going to creep up on more people's radars. And I wouldn't be shocked if this becomes a show a lot of people recommend, being like, you know what? Didn't have a lot of hopes going into this show, but it was a really, really good ride that they're probably going to be recommending it to a lot of people. There's always the risk of things growing bored and stale, sure. But from what I just saw in this first episode, this will probably be one of the most fun experiences I have week after week. Airing on a Wednesday, nice mid-refresher sort of a thing. This show's gonna be an absolute blast, and I'm loving the character banter, and it's pretty refreshing take on comedy isekai. Nothing drastically original, but it's enough to make it feel like it's TSUKIMICHI, not just a carbon copy of something we've already seen before, right? Let me know your thoughts and feelings on this week's episode of TSUKIMICHI. You gonna keep on watching it? And what was your personal favorite gag in the episode? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be around here. Since next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.